I just watched The Black Phone and I gotta say I overall liked it. I think this movie does plenty of things well, and you can see a lot of what has worked in Scott Derrickson's other movies being implemented into this one. Yet at the same time, the movie was far from perfect for me. There are plenty of things that could have been ironed out better, and I feel like the movie overall wasn't as polished as it could have been in terms of the plot. We'll get more into that later. This is my review for The Black Phone. Let me start this review by clarifying that I've only seen this movie once. So while this is a review, these are also kind of my initial impressions, and if I watch the movie again, my opinions might change. I generally try to watch every movie twice so I can get a better understanding of the film. But now we've gotten this out of the way, let's jump straight into the positives of this movie. I love the way this movie is shot. It really has that 70s aesthetic nailed down, and the movie overall feels like a moving vintage photograph. The color palette for this movie is beautiful, and the disruptions that come from the blood onto the palette makes the horror scenes all the more prominent. The jump scares within this movie are also well done. You expect them at certain moments, but they still work. The jump scares don't feel cheap at all, and they work within the story. The movie is also funny in a weird way. The Black Phone feels like a super sad movie because it deals with murdering children, but at the same time the movie finds spaces for comedy, which helps to break the foreboding and depressing mood that mostly dominates the film. I think the scenes that are done with Max are super funny and help add a new eccentric character into the mix. The last positive that I'll mention is the clever reversal of roles between the children and the adults within the story. I love how the plot within this movie flips the kids and the adults, with the kids acting more like adults and the adults acting more like kids. We see this super clearly with the dad in the story. Finney and Gwen both take turns caring for their dad, when really he should be the one taking care of them. We also see how the police department seems to take Gwen as a figure of authority, when they should be the ones who are leading the charge. We also see the grabber himself acting like a kid throughout this movie. His character is obsessed with magic and he talks extremely politely for the most part as if he is a kid. Another cool aspect of the grabber is how his mask reflects his temper. We see the first mask that the grabber wears at Finney is a mouthless mask, which shows that he is neutral. Then later on he wears a smiling mask, which shows that he likes Finney and he's being nice to him. Then we see his final mask with the frown that indicates punishment, and he only wears this mask when he intends to harm Finney. The grabber also plays Naughty Boy, which seems like a game that was played on him when he was a kid. This movie deals a lot with abuse, but it keeps it nuanced enough to keep this aspect interesting. Now let's move on to what this movie could have done better. The Black Phone keeps the plot concise, but I'm worried that it keeps the plot way too concise. What I mean by this is that there are certain areas of the plot that definitely could have been ironed out a bit more and expanded upon to offer us a much less convoluted story. For example, we aren't really made aware of how the police got into contact with Gwen. We kind of have to assume how they did it. We understand why they take her seriously since she says things that she shouldn't know, but how did they find out about her? My immediate thought is that she said it to one of her classmates who then told their parents, and one of their parents just so happened to be a cop working on this investigation. But they should have cleared this up for us to provide a much more seamless story and to expand on the cops who feel a bit underutilized in this movie. Now guys, I'll be completely honest and transparent with you, the theater I went to had some serious assholes who wouldn't shut up for the first 20 minutes of this movie, and this scene just happened to be in those first 20 minutes, so it's perfectly possible that I didn't get the line that tips off how the police became aware of Gwen. But back to the movie and to the parts where I could actually fully hear what was going on and pay attention to the film. Another aspect in which I was kind of WTFing in terms of the story was with the grabber having two houses. Why does he need two homes? That sounds like the least practical solution to his problem. Also, why would he put his brother in the home that has the kid rather than put him in the home with the bodies? It'd be much easier to cover up and mask the scent of the dead bodies than hide a fully alive kid. I just wish the movie expanded on this a little bit more to explain the grabber's logic. I understand he is supposed to be a mysterious character, but he just comes off as an idiot. I mentioned it before with the police department, but a lot of the characters in this movie feel underutilized. Max's storyline feels like a complete afterthought and he doesn't do anything in the movie. I wish they could have expanded on how Max eventually puts together that his brother is the grabber, rather than his discovery being pretty happen chance. The cops also feel useless and like they just wait for Gwen to tell them what to do. I understand this is supposed to be a role reversal between the children and the adults, but I wish the cops could be shown doing something, whether they were competent or incompetent, rather than being completely inactive throughout the movie. I also wish they gave a bit more of a motive or subtle foreshadowing, or something to explain why the grabber is doing what he is doing. In other abduction movies, we're usually told why the killer feels a need to torture others, but this aspect is left out of this movie. We can make our best guesses, but it would be really nice if they gave us some justification to work with. The Grabber is also a very stereotypical killer in that when his mask is removed he starts screaming, and that's what causes his death indirectly. I just wish they went a little bit more in depth on why the Grabber has such an attachment to his mask. The last thing I'll critique is the acting from time to time, but I won't go any deeper since most of these are child actors and we should be forgiving. Sometimes the acting is a little bit weird, but this isn't a huge issue when it comes to the movie. The movie also has some super cheesy lines, but overall I'm not going to hold that against the film since it might be a part of the appeal for some people. As far as the verdict goes for this movie, I would say that The Black Phone is a very decent movie. This movie to me kind of comes off as a kids movie with profanity. Not a kids movie in a bad way, but in the way that it feels like a grown-up child's folktale. Watching this movie, I don't know why, but I kept thinking of the game Secret Neighbor and Dr. Sleep, since there is a child with powers in that movie too. Dr. Sleep is also written by Stephen King, who is Joe Hill's dad, and Joe Hill is the author of The Black Phone, so maybe that can explain the connection there. Overall though, I would say The Black Phone is a movie that is worth watching and enjoying, but this movie definitely could have ironed out some of the kinks more, particularly in the script. I think from a technical perspective this movie is super unique and interesting, but the writing is really the only thing that holds this movie down. I usually don't like giving ratings, but if I have to, here it is. On a scale of 1 to 4, 4 being the best, I would give The Black Phone a very solid 3. Guys, that is all I have for this video. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing. Also, this is my first review type video, so please leave me some feedback and your thoughts on if I should do more reviews. And if you made it this far, thank you so much, I love you, and I genuinely hope that you have a great rest of your day.